Our guest speaker is Patty Anklam. She's an acknowledged expert in social and organizational network analysis. She's an independent consultant, a certified in OrgMapper, and her clients include leading global corporations, government research agencies, and nonprofit organizations. Before getting into consultancy, she held key knowledge management positions at Nortel Networks and HP. So, without further ado, welcome everybody, and I'm going to pass this over to Patty now. So, Patty, you may begin.
Okay, thank you, Taylor. I'm happy to be here to talk about knowledge management and networks. What I'd like to do briefly, first give you some context for knowledge management, why it's important, how it's evolved over the years, what we've learned about the impact of mapping networks to improve organizational performance. The context is knowledge. And over the years, a core set of organizational problems have been identified that are related to knowledge. These vary across organizations, but you're likely to have one or more in your organizations. I like to think of these as the building blocks as a business case for a knowledge management program. Organizations need to move at a lightning fast pace when dealing with a customer problem or trying to out-innovate competitors. It's vital to be able to know where the expertise is in an organization and be able to get to it quickly. It's said that knowledge lives in an organization's documents, in its people and its processes. But if these are not organized for accessibility, then employee productivity suffers if it takes just too long to find a right piece of information or expertise. In organizations I've worked with, sometimes being able to locate expertise at the time that it's needed is the #1 problem. Another knowledge flow problem, it comes from making sure that people can get onboarded quickly. That is, bringing new people up to speed. Employees, contractors, or partners can be a big drain on the valuable employees if it's not managed well. And it's costly to bring new people up to speed, and it's important that they become productive very quickly. Another classic problem in knowledge management is that of reinventing the wheel. When people in one organization or geography start new work without first looking to see if something similar has already been done and leveraging the people who've done it. We waste time to market, time to solve a customer problem, but it can also be very demoralizing for employees if they feel that their work was not recognized or if they spent time solving a problem that was already solved. Employees retire or leave the company and take what they know with them when organizations have not made sure that those employees' knowledge has been suitably captured and shared with others. So it's really important to identify the knowledge centers and hubs and put talent management plans in place to ensure that what people who are going to leave, what they know has been shared and is accessible. Employees need to be motivated to share what they know and to be given the means to do that. To make their work visible and discoverable by others, including people they may not know. In knowledge management, we understand and try to work against the barriers to people sharing what they know, job security, for example. But that is our topic for today, not our topic for today. So these are some of the key issues in knowledge management that I have seen in my career. We'd like to take a short poll today to see if ask you on the call if any of you have formal knowledge management programs. Are you addressing some of these problems in your organization? Is there a leader responsible for strategy, program design, implementation? Just select one quickly. Let's do this poll quickly. I'd like to get a sense of where the audience here is at in terms of knowledge management. So we have 40% have responded. Let's get a couple more responses and we'll see what we've got. Okay, it looks like we've got about 65%. So let's see what the vote looks like. Okay, so a very small number of people actually have knowledge management programs in place, but it's good to see that there's some number working on it. So let's quickly move over to a quick history of knowledge management for those of you who may not be familiar with it. Knowledge management has evolved as a disciplined set of practices over the past 23 years, beginning with thinking about artifacts and then acknowledging the importance of human exchange, and then came today represents an entirely new way of working that's transparent, open, and discoverable. Let's look at each of these very quickly. Knowledge management became interesting as a discipline around the time of technological advances in document imaging and in the capturing of word processing programs. As people started to get electronic documents, they needed to be able to manage them. And people are now facing the challenge of storing and organizing hundreds of thousands and millions of documents. In the same time, the World Wide Web came on the scene, and both of these tools came to enable the searching of documents. That was our primary focus of knowledge management. The thinking was, and was true, that much of the knowledge of the organization lives in its documents or its artifacts. The second place that knowledge lives in an organization is in its people. Its people cannot express or codify in documents as acquired through experience. What we saw in this era of knowledge management were two thrusts. One of providing tools to enable people to communicate across distances, and the second thrust enable focus on work practices to elicit tacit knowledge and provide people with ways to share it. This is a time when we saw the emergence of communities of practice, things like lessons learned, appreciative inquiry, and peer assists. We're now in this third era. We add to the previous layers, and we say that knowledge lives in the network as well as in our people and in our artifacts. Emergent knowledge needs to be discoverable. Critical information is flowing through social media and social tools so that it can be discoverable. You may have heard the term working out loud, which was a set of methods for sharing work in progress, narrating work so that it can be found and accessed by others. And then when found, creates the basis for new relationships. And knowledge is in those relationships as well. Which brings us to the role of networks and network mapping. Larry Prusak brought a number of researchers to a consortium at IBM in the late 1990s to study knowledge management. One of Larry's key phrases always inspired me, that knowledge flows along existing pathways in organizations. If you can map the pathways, then you can take steps to alter, increase, improve the flow. The researcher at the IKM was Rob Cross, who may be known to many of you. Rob brought network science to knowledge management. We started mapping networks, as you see here, where we can show individuals as nodes and color them by organizations, and we can show connections. We get the data to draw the maps in many ways, but the most effective for getting qualitative results for knowledge management is through surveys. The OrgMapper tool that Andras will speak of in a moment provides both survey tools as well as analysis tools that let us look at the networks. If we drill down into a network map, we can see many finer points, like groups of people who are tightly interconnected, bridgers who are able to transfer or broker knowledge from one group to another, and hubs who can communicate to a number of people. We can also see people who are less well connected. We can show the direction of connections. Are connections mutual, or does a search for expertise or advice go only one way? Strength. We can show the strength of connection. How many ways do people interact? Do they seek each other for advice only or for personal support as well? And we can ask in the surveys that generate connections about the quality of the interactions. Showing both the individual and group organizational level, we can show the quality of knowledge flow. Let's look at some quick examples from my past work. This is an example of a professional services firm. The senior VP, the big dark blue node in the center, was concerned that knowledge was not flowing across his organizational group. Knowledge about technology changes and knowledge about customers and innovations. This map shows the top 3 levels of the organization. A connection indicates frequent communication. There are 2 interesting patterns that are quickly visible in looking at this map. First, you'll see that most of the individual organizations are well connected among their own groups, with the exception of the pink group at the upper left-hand corner. Second, you can see that the managers are communicating across boundaries to a little extent in some groups. So if you see the connections between the orange and the yellow groups, or the red and the orange, or the yellow and the pink, you can see that there's not a lot of communication going across. Both of these patterns, a group that's sparsely connected in comparison with others, as well as the interdepartmental connections, are salient features that were extremely useful to this management team who started to making plans for improving their knowledge flow as soon as they saw this map. Another way that maps help understand knowledge flow is to highlight key individuals when we show sizes to reflect how many people access them for information, who seek their knowledge. Looking at position and size of this map, These are a very central group of people. Yellow diamonds are the center of this network. It turns out that this is a consulting group that was hired for a 3-year period to develop this cross-country network of agricultural experts. They saw the need to think about how to ensure that their knowledge was not lost to the network when their project ended. So what? So this leads us to the big so what about doing network analysis. Maps always lead to good questions, so those questions should lead to changes, interventions that will improve knowledge flow. There are always options of intervening either at the organizational level or at the individual level. In many cases, it takes only a small number of changes. Introducing key people, for example, or putting people who do not know each other together on projects to have an impact. Returning to our isolated group in the professional services example, the sparsity of connection showed the need for a face-to-face group event so that members could learn about each other's talents and experiences. So let's do another quick poll before we go on. We're interested to know which of the knowledge problems you are seeing or experiencing in your organization. Are you voting? Let's vote, folks. Okay, I'll give it another couple seconds. You can pick all that apply. All right, let's see what we have. Insufficient knowledge flow across groups and overloaded experts, very key. I see these a lot in the organization. Interesting about finding out experts being available and other issues. So this is very useful. Thank you so much for that. And so now that's been my experience in knowledge networks over the past 20-some years, during which I'm always learning something new. Most recently, I was introduced to OrgMapper and the folks at Maven 7, who have applied rigorous research in organizational behavior and organizational development to the mapping of networks. So András Vicsek will now take you through the OrgMapper approach.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you so much for this great overview of how social network analysis fits into the whole knowledge management field. And what I would like to show today is how you can map connections related to knowledge sharing with an easy-to-use online application, and of course how you can use the results to boost knowledge sharing and improve knowledge flow. But before I jump into the application, I would like to show or illustrate an example of how hidden networks within a community can influence the overall performance of a certain group. In this case, it's I think an exciting example because our research team coming from Alta University actually mapped how a group of flocking pigeons or homing pigeons got their way home. They put them in a certain place and then look at how they are actually flying home together as a group of pigeons. And they put these miniature GPS signals detectors on their backpacks and track their flow of how they're moving along, finding their way home. And what was really exciting from the results, just by looking at how they're moving, you would see that there's this yellow pigeon over here who seems to be in front a lot of time. On the other hand, by analyzing the actual data, they saw that the real hidden influencer is the red pigeon, because actually the yellow pigeon at certain times, as you can see, goes back, looks at which direction the red pigeon is flying, then takes on the lead for that direction. But actually the influencer of which way they are going is the red pigeon. And I think this applies to a lot of social situations, that there are people who seem to be in the background, are not that visible, but actually are very much contributing to the overall performance of a group. This is very much similar to knowledge-intensive areas like IT, consulting, finance, where you have those hidden experts who you need, who people are going to take advice and then taking on those processes. So now I would like to focus on what is the process of a knowledge management program based on mapping informal networks. So what we do first of all is, of course, try to map the current state of the knowledge sharing by looking into whether we have underutilized experts or overloaded experts, which came out from the poll as well as an important area. Are there any groups who are lacking real experts or go-to people? What is the knowledge sharing across organizational boundaries, which was one of the key areas that you all mentioned? How accessible knowledge is within the organization and the teams? Are there employees with key knowledge or capabilities and access to innovative ideas and their execution path? And of course, how newcomers can integrate and access the expertise of people within the organization. Once we have this information, the next step can be, of course, to take actions, try to look into which departments we should, connect or set up meetings or have knowledge sharing tools around, or who are the rising stars we need to involve in trainings, and all sorts of actions that you can take around knowledge sharing. And what you can expect from such a knowledge management initiative, of course, is that more accessible knowledge across the organization, because the experts are more utilized, problem solving will be faster. And of course, as Patty said, it's important to be more responsive to the customers and all these other areas that are coming out from mapping the connections, looking into how you can build new connections or get overload off of your too overloaded experts and so on. We did a study where we were focusing on the question was, does knowledge spread in human networks like viruses do? So for instance, if you have an expert and people can connect to that expert, will their knowledge actually flow within these networks through the connections? And will this contribute to a higher performance to those people who could access this expertise? And the answer was quite evident. The accessibility of experts actually influences the group performances. We saw that the groups where there were experts and those experts had a lot of connections and people were actually using their knowledge performed much better than those groups where although they had experts, people were not using them or they were not accessible to others. We will showcase on how that actually works. Also, it not only influences the group performance, but knowledge accessibility influences individual performance as well. What we could see when we were working for a financial institution, that people who could build mutual sympathy or trust connections to an expert, or they actually just had a formal communication going on, they had to work with that expert, performed much better than those who could not access a highly acknowledged expert within the community. And I would like to ask you again to answer a question related to the channels that you're using for knowledge sharing. The question is, through which channels do you think new hires are able to most quickly acquire corporate knowledge? Is it through printed online documents shared via servers, intranet, or is it corporate social collaboration tools? Or, of course, via face-to-face communication with their peers or their colleagues? We already have 60% of the votes, so we'll just wait some more. Of course, you can select whichever you want. Okay, so let's look at the results. The majority says that it's face-to-face communication, so newcomers, they really need to be able to connect and have meetings with and to be able to talk with people to learn the most quickly in the organization. But of course, it's also important to have formal documents around it and also corporate social tools supporting this process. So I would now like to show you a few examples from OrgMapper and how you can use the application to map all these areas that we just talked about, who are the experts, how accessible they are, within a real case that we did for an IT consulting firm. Here what you can see, all the nodes are different employees. They are connected with arrows. If they are turning to each other for advice, they're asking the other person. The blue nodes represent those people within the group who most people said for the question in the online survey that they do have the most, professional knowledge and experience. So they're the most technology experts in their area. They're the top, 10% who others say are experts. By looking at this network, you can see if there's an incoming arrow, that means that somebody is asking that person for advice. Just by looking at this network, you will see several patterns coming up. For instance, down here you see an expert. Everybody's saying that he's really someone who has a lot of experience and knowledge. On the other hand, as you can see, nobody is turning to this person. Nobody's asking this person for advice. This can be, of course, because of several problems or issues. It can be because the person is not located in the right place. Maybe is in a different building than the people are who should be using his experience and expertise. Or it can be that this person doesn't like to share knowledge, or is really introverted, or because knowledge is power, of course. He doesn't want to give away this type of power by sharing all the information that he has gathered throughout the years. Anyway, you have to definitely know about the situation, because if it's an area where it's crucial to share this information for problem solving, like IT, this will cause a lot of problems. On the other hand, here you see someone, an expert, who tons of people turn to, and in one sense this can be good because this means that this person is accessible. On the other hand, this is like a real overload situation. Imagine, this person wants to go on with his daily work. On the other hand, people are turning to him, like 20 people a day, asking all sorts of questions, and then this person works 14 hours a day, then burns out and leaves the organization, and you're losing one of your key experts. On the other hand, you can show that there are other experts within the community who are less overloaded but have the same expertise, and you can point to these people and tell your overloaded expert that you can delegate or send people to this person if you want to focus on your own work. One other interesting part of the network you see here on the left side, what we call blind leading blind. This means that there's no real acknowledged expert within this community or team here. On the other hand, there seems to be someone who people are turning to more frequently, but they don't acknowledge that person as an expert yet. this means that this person doesn't have the label, like they're not calling him an expert. On the other hand, he already seems to be someone who's like a go-to person. So if I'm from HR, I need to spend budgets on training, I would definitely focus on this person here, because this way I would help this group, have all this expertise, and this person will share his experience and all this learned. On the other hand, if you send your non-accessible expert again to further training, you will have the least return on investment, because this person won't share all the information, he will just keep it to himself. So all these types of information can actually come out from such a survey and methodology. And the exciting part comes if you put on additional information to these networks. For instance, who are the colleagues who are actually going to retire within 2 years? Those are the yellow nodes now, so we highlighted them with the yellow. And you see that in 2 years, you are going to lose your key experts. They're going to leave the organization. What you can do about it is, of course, look into how you can help to collect all the knowledge or information that is gathered sometimes only in their head, and when they leave the organization, it might happen that you're experiencing all sorts of problems that nobody can solve. There was a case in Spain where they had a nuclear power plant and they had to do downsizing, and it made sense to focus on sending away people who are going to retire soon. But what happened is, of course, the people who are before their retirement were actually the most experienced senior experts. So they were sending away their key experts, and in half-year time there was a security alert in the power plant and nobody was able to handle it. So they were trying to reach out to these experts. Some of them were already living in a different country, or they were not really reachable, and they had to shut down the power plant for several weeks, which caused of course a huge loss for the organization. This is what happens when your key experts leave. You see that in some cases a huge area or a huge community will lack these go-to people and these experts. So if you know how this map looks like, you can start planning who are the people you need to connect, put into common projects, who you need to train, and so on. One other area which is also important to map is the knowledge sharing between locations. In some cases, problems with knowledge sharing doesn't only come from the connections between departments. Sometimes the physical distance is actually a problem, although we have of course powerful tools now to support knowledge sharing. What we did here is you have the different nodes are the different locations of this company, and the arrows show how many people are turning to people in that certain location. So for instance, here you have Orlando, people in Orlando, 406 people are actually turning to people in Orlando, so it's an internal knowledge advice seeking here. On the other hand, this network is the first one is about the acknowledgement of expertise. Which of your colleagues do you believe to have the most professional knowledge and experience? So in this case, what you see is, yeah, people see that there are a lot of experts in Orlando, and also they see that there are a lot of experts in Boston. On the other hand, if we look at how they are actually turning to people within this community, which of your colleagues do you turn to for professional advice most often, you see that only 57 people from Orlando turn to people in Boston, although twice as many people actually believe that there are really smart people here. So because of the distance, because it's hard to reach out to these people, they're actually not using those experiences while they know that it's there. And the lucky thing was that they were already planning to relocate the two offices and to move to the same office space in Orlando. So this was a very strong confirmation to them that it's a good idea, because they really should be turning to each other and using their experiences. Another example is working for an IT company. They had problems in knowledge sharing, but mainly between the departments, but they didn't understand the underlying dynamics behind it. So what you can see here, of course there are a lot of colorful lines, but what you see here is on the top, these are the top management members, senior management. In the middle, in this circle, you see the middle management members, and here, the big circle, the nodes are the employees of the company. They are connected if they are asking each other, turning to each other for professional advice. What you can see here is, on one hand, it can be a good situation that actually all levels, all hierarchy levels are asking each other, so there's no real distance between the different hierarchy levels. But actually they were surprised that so many people from the employee levels were directly turning to top senior managers, which was causing, of course, overload here. So senior managers were, after seeing this, were more motivated in having people turn to middle management and having less connections with the lower levels. What else you could see, and I think this is even more exciting, is if we look at the connections only between the members of a certain hierarchy level. Here you see the connections of knowledge advice seeking within the top management team, within the middle management team, and again within all employees of the different departments represented with different colors. Immediately what they saw, and it's I think quite visible and transparent, is that although there's a lot of advice seeking within the management team and also within the employees, you can see a lot of connections here. There seem to be really little number of connections within the middle management. What does this mean? This means that in the middle management, where there's the most operative daily work and decisions done, middle managers are not actually turning to each other, are not actually using their experiences, which will result, of course, in decisions not being shared, knowledge not being shared on these levels. And one of the main messages we want to get across is, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. Which means first you need data on what's happening, then you know what you can plan as actions, then you can get the measurable results at the end. What we do, first on the left side here, you see to do such a report, you need data from HR, who are your people, what departments they belong to, what hierarchy level they belong to. You can get log files from your IT systems, such as emails or telephone calls or social collaboration tools. And of course, you can do an online survey, as you've seen previously, to ask questions like, who do you receive tasks from, who do you seek advice from, and these types of questions. Then all this information goes into our black box, which has all sorts of algorithms and network analytics. And at the end, what you get is powerful visualizations of the networks and pinpointing key influencers and key experts and their accessibility. From the system itself, you are able to generate reports from these networks which already highlight the most exciting and most important parts related to knowledge management, as we talked about it. Who are the experts, how accessible they are, what is the knowledge flow between the departments, where are the inefficient links, how is communication taking place between the locations, who are the inaccessible experts, and so on. You will also get a profile of your most acknowledged experts, about how people are actually using their knowledge, how they are acknowledging their knowledge from the survey itself. So people might be very much acknowledged as experts. On the other hand, you will be able to see how accessible they are to others, how people are turning to them for advice, and also it will show how people are perceiving their behavior related to innovation. Are they the ones who are initiating new innovative ideas, processes, or are they the ones who are actually supporting the ideas or new ideas of others? And of course, the system itself is an easy-to-use interface. You can set up a survey, you can choose ChangeMapper, and immediately after you close the survey, you will get a full PDF report, and also you can play around with your data sets, visualizing the different networks, highlighting the different key attributes of the individuals, and pinpointing the crucial areas for knowledge sharing. And also the systems let you generate different top lists of people who are the key experts or inaccessible, and so on. So the key takeaway message for today would be to first, before doing anything with your team around knowledge management, the journey to leveraging the knowledge begins with a map. It's like before, if you want to get somewhere, you have to plan your trip. You need to know how you want to get there, what is the quickest way. And ChangeMapper gives you all of those insights that help you plan the right knowledge management initiative and to have the right interventions along the way. Involve who are the people you need to involve from the organization, and helps you to visualize all these knowledge sharing networks, identify these hidden experts, and reveals whether there's someone who is underutilized or overloaded, and of course reveals the flow of information and gaps in information flow between groups of people. And at the end of this webinar, we would like to have some time for your questions, and of course answers to those questions. So if you have any question related to what Patty was asking, Patty was sharing, and what I was talking about, then please feel free to write it in the chat or raise your hand, and we can connect you here as well. Yeah, we have a question here. When using OrgMapper, do you, Maven 7, provide help to the company to set up a questionnaire? Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, so first of all, we have standard questionnaires for our modules. So for ChangeMapper, we have a standard set of questions which have been tested at hundreds of organizations, and it can be used to generate a standard report on the given topics. But beside this, if there are tailored questions you want to ask related to your own expertise, you can include that in the questionnaire as well, but we give help on how to phrase those questions. Is there any other question? Yes? How can you translate the utility of OrgMapper into return on investment to support the head of HR when facing this question from the CEO? Yeah, important question. So in other words, how do you convince the budget owner to permit the purchase of OrgMapper? I think if you remember Patty's slides on the types of problems, lack of knowledge sharing can cause within the organization, you can resemble that there was a lot of things or problems that at the end will cost a lot of money for the company. For instance, we've also worked for organizations where somebody was working on a new application and in a half-year time shared it with one of their managers, and it turned out that somebody from another team has already worked out that type of application before him. So that was duplication, which of course, if you add up those work hours, that could have been spent on a new application. It cost a lot to the company. And also, if you remember the slide on the people how accessible their knowledge is, you could see that there are rising stars who can be revealed through the methodology, and if you can spend your training budgets on these people, the return on the investment can be perceived in numbers at the end, because they will be the ones who are sharing knowledge, and as we saw it from our research, knowledge flows in human networks, and it will result in higher performance if expertise is accessible. Okay. Does your survey also measure if communities' knowledge is codified and how well codified it is? What we measure is more on what are the knowledge assets or the areas of the knowledge which people are actually using. For instance, we worked for an organization where the management thought that there were 50 different important knowledge areas within the organization. On the other hand, when we were asking people to show us who they're actually turning to for a certain question within that knowledge area, we saw that there were no real connections, almost so very sparse network with a few connections. So we were able to show how important a certain knowledge area is within the community. Does OrgMapper point out solution to visualize a problem, or just identifying the problem? Well, I would say it's somewhere in between. I mean, it doesn't solve a problem, but by knowing, who are the people or the experts who are overloaded, by knowing who are the experts who are not accessible, by knowing which are the departments where knowledge sharing is not taking place and it should, by knowing where the communities who lack experts, you know where you have to set up the actions. But of course, what you have to do differs from your strategy, is different by organizational culture and your existing tools as well. But it gives you great insights, and it doesn't just address a general problem. It shows you what you can do with it. The question is your algorithm fully automatic, or do you have analyzer team? How long does it take to have a result after we filled out the survey? So the OrgMapper has a built-in automatic reporting tool where after you finish the I mean, the people finish filling out the survey, you click on Close Survey, and in the system itself, it generates automatically these networks. But apart from that, we as the OrgMapper team generate a full PDF report within 3 days, where our analysts go through the results and help to give some, insights and play around with the layouts if needed. But in the system itself, you already have an automatic report immediately after you close the survey. Next question. Does your questionnaire help uncover hidden expertise areas which organizations can leverage? Yes. So I think one areas that I just mentioned previously is that sometimes organizations don't realize which knowledge areas are actually, or which expertise are the ones that most people need to use, and who are the experts in those areas? Do they have enough experts in those areas? And the survey and the report helps to reveal these types of knowledge areas and experts.
All right, so everybody, thank you so much for joining the webinar today, and I just want to quickly wrap up a few things, but we really appreciate this, and if you have any questions or you want to schedule a private demo or presentation, etc., on this model, knowledge management, or one of our other mappers, please feel free to contact me directly, Taylor Cleaves. You can find me over LinkedIn, over my email, or contact us at info@orgmapper.com or our website for more information. At the end of this, we're actually going to send you out a follow-up email with the content and the recorded audio of today's event for your viewing pleasure. Thank you again so much for joining, and we really hope to see you again on the next one. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Bye.